Welcome back, I'm Tedward. Welcome to the winter here in New England. And as you can see, there's really no snow. We'll get dustings here and there, but the reality is we got to store our cars for the winter, not because they can't function in the snow. Trust me, we've proven that with my E92 M3 rear-wheel drive with some snow tires does a great job. You do not need the all-wheel drive behemoth of this Lexus GX460 to just get around. It'll be fine, but if you want your cars to survive the salt and corrosion, you do need to start thinking about storage. So hang on, let's get this started up and then we'll talk. Tedward, why didn't you wait for the new GX550? Well, I wanted a V8 and I wanted these gauges. And so far, the last of this generation, has been doing me quite well. Heated seats, heated steering wheel. Oh, that's always nice. This is a thing. When Honda stopped doing the heated seats in the Civic Si, there is some consternation about that because A, they were taking it away from the 10th generation, which people already had and thought, well, this is what you get out of an Si. But two, it's cold, man. It's cold out here. And it is really nice to just take a little bit of the chill off with the heated seat. I don't see that as some like big fancy smanchy luxury item anymore. All right, I guess I had my steering wheel there. Who doesn't love a rear wiper? So I don't understand why Porsche people think that deleting the rear wiper is cool. A rear wiper on a 911 is very cool. Beyond just salt and corrosion, the winter destroys the roads because you get frost heaves, which is when the moisture and water underneath the pavement starts to freeze, it expands, and then you get those washboards and all kinds of ugly characteristics on the pavement. And then you also get damage from the plows and equipment that are trying to keep the roads clear, salted, plowed, all that good stuff. And you end up with these monster potholes. It just does a number. When you have an atmosphere like you do in New England, where you get warm, freezing, those are those things that just destroy roads. And when you destroy those roads, even if there was no salt to corrode your car, my 911 probably not going to survive too well slamming into potholes created by plows or created by frost heaves. So in order to increase the longevity of my cars and also just use them as directed, right? I mean, yes, you should be driving your cars as much as you can, but you should be driving them in conditions that make sense for them, because off-roading in my 911 is not something I'm ever going to do. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I do try to make sure that I'm using them correctly. Look, even this. Slamming into all this stuff in the GX does not matter. These are all things that would feel quite unpleasant and unsavory in my 911 or even my M5. So now, instead of leaving them in my driveway under a cover, under the snow, and just getting moisture and temperature variations, and especially that M5, it has that leather dashboard, and that's going to expand and contract in the temperature changes. Well, I don't have indoor garage space that's really temperature regulated, and I don't have room for it because we have other things in the garage that take priority. So I've done that, where that car has lived in my driveway for a season or two. And then I also had some friends who had storage for me. They were, better solutions, but at least indoors. Inside a barn, I used to keep my 911 and my M5, and then Eddie used to keep his Camaro in there as well. It allowed us to at least keep it out of the elements, but then you run into other issues. The temperatures still fluctuate, so that's not great for the leather and certain components, but there's also mice. Mice are bad. Mice are cold too, man, so you present a mouse with a nice warm little spot to build a nest and get all nestled up on your intake or in some weird little crevasse in your vehicle, they're gonna take it. And then those little mice, maybe they get hungry, and maybe your wires taste super good, or maybe those wires are in the way of where they want to build their thing, so they just got to chew through them and move it out of the way. You would too. Yes, we need to deal with the mice, and it's hard because everyone has their little tricks, whether it's dryer sheets or I used Irish Spring soap and you break it up and put it all over the car to try, or peppermint balls. Dude, mice don't care. They do not care. Mice will go wherever you think you're deterring them. It is what it is. So we'd set out traps all over the place, and sure, you'd catch a few, but it didn't mean it was all of them. And that's always a trouble. So now I am in a position where I'm like, look, I want these cars to be stored correctly. And this is where Garage 42 comes in up in Acton, Massachusetts. And I'm going to show you this today because not only is it a great storage solution to allow me to make sure that my cars are secure, safe, temperature regulated. It's like being in this state of suspended animation. They just kind of go there and it's 60, 70 degrees. Nothing bad is happening. We're going to need fuel because it's a GX460. Nothing bad is happening to these cars because they just sit in a happy place and they're not having to deal with the expanding and contraction of leather and gaskets and all this other stuff because they're outside or exposed to kind of ugly elements. It's so wild when you get fuel in this car. You have to pull so far forward because that fuel door is like all the way in the back of the vehicle. Hang on. Let's go get some gas. But one of the best things about Garage 42 is that the wash bay is inside the place where I store the cars. Because if I was going to store my cars up at my friend's barn, I would wash the car at my house and then I would drive it up to the barn. So it's still getting exposed to some of the elements as this is going down, which means that there's opportunity for salt and sand and moisture and all kinds of junky stuff getting on the car, and then it goes into storage. Whereas at Garage 42, I'm able to say, okay, well, we're gonna wash the heck out of this, make sure that there's nothing. We always wanna move over for emergency vehicles or even parked vehicles. Like this guy, he's a tow truck driver. We don't wanna kill this guy. We just wanna let him do his job. You want to make sure that you're getting everything off right before you're putting it into storage, and especially before you put a cover on the car, because when you put a cover on a car, you're basically putting a cover on top of the paint, and if anything is on that paint, even if it's just a thin layer of some schmutz from the outside world or some salt or some sand, well, that's going to act as an abrasive. So if the car is exposed to any type of wind or movement, you're going to get all kinds of little micro scratches on the car, and that's exactly what happened to my E39 M5. I stored that car under a cover, but I don't know that the paint was perfectly clear of all of the debris before the cover was on it. Whereas at Garage 42, when that cover goes on, I know that it's like literally rolled out of the wash bay, dried, put into its bay, its storage bay, and then covered. So there's nothing that's going to move it. Also, there's no wind or motion inside the building, so it's never going to be scratching the paint. But all those little micro abrasions add up over years, and that's why you're like, man, what happened to my car? I thought I was taking care of it. I thought I was good at washing my car. You probably are, but if you're covering your car, sometimes that's where all that little insanity comes from. And then you end up with a fun bill from your detailer who has to compound the whole car and reseal it with a ceramic coat, and then you get those, at least you get a good 50-50 shot of the before and after. But anyway, the other nice thing about this place that I'll show you is that it's become kind of a clubhouse, which I love, because instead of just putting my cars away and not seeing them for 3 or 4 months, I get to go and use this place as my podcast studio, which is exactly what I'm doing today. I'm going to go up there and record with my friend Thanasi. Thanasi is the best because he has such an insane wealth of knowledge about the car industry, and I'm going to keep him coming back to kind of keep us on our toes and informed about what's really happening in the industry. I love his takes. I like that he's just well researched and also pretty poised in his opinions. He's not someone who has like these like obnoxious hot takes where he just like, I hate EVs or I hate V8s, or he has intelligence behind all the things he's saying, and he also understands this stuff from a business perspective, so it's not just a consumer thing. Anyway, let's get up to Garage 42 with the GX and I'll show you what we're doing today. There's a Bentley Continental GT behind me, and if it is not going to Garage 42, I would be shocked. It's gotta be one of the Depreciation Society cars. Over the moat. All right, let's run in and I'll show you what's good here at Garage 42 on this blustery day.
All right, let's take a look inside. Edwin's out here with the car hauler dropping something off. We'll see what he's brought in. But what I'm digging about this place is the community is starting to grow because more and more people are starting to figure out what this place actually is. So I was in here a little while ago and there's a bunch of guys just hanging out having lunch. Then Ryan's in here washing this gorgeous Vantage. But that's the beauty, is when you bring your car in here, it's gonna get washed before it gets put away. Lots of loud noises, but anyway, it's a good thing because it means that when you're putting your car away, you're not just stuffing it dirty or you're washing it, bringing it to the location, and then it gets gross. You're actually bringing it in, it's getting cleaned and then stored. So it's something that's really nice. They've been doing a ton of work over here with wheels and tires because everyone's getting ready for the winter season. It might be a little messy in here right now, but anyway, we've got mounter, balancer. So if you've got winter wheels and tires that need to get on the cars, if you are using these cars, the door is fast, that you're good to go. In here, oh my goodness, it is really starting to fill up and it's nice. And there's some beautiful toys that end up in here, but I think the best example of sort of the range of cars that end up in this facility is right here. You've got a new SF90 Spider and then an E34 M5. Like, those could not be more different, and yet they live together in harmony in this place. And what's nice is just that it's always the same humidity, the same temperature. It's not gonna allow your cars to sort of degrade and fall apart. My M5 came in here just the other day, still needs to get a bit of a bath, but luckily I beat the salt. So it mostly just needs to get all the junky brake dust off of the wheels. But what I'm psyched about is that it just allows me to kind of enjoy the car for what it is and not feeling like I'm always panicked about where it's gonna go in the winter. It's living next to some friends that we've seen on the channel, actually, all of these now that I think about it. This Bentley Azure, we spent some really nice times in that car driving up the Maine coast. The Phantom, or the big BMW, which is wonderful and always is a bit of a big dog, especially when you put it next to a Wraith or a Ghost. And when they're side by side, this is where you really get the picture of how insane the bespoke platform for the Phantom and Cullinan are in relation to the 7 Series chassis that the Wraith and the Ghost are based on. And some cars are just more fragile than others. Sure, a modern luxury car can probably withstand some salt, snow, and will be a little more corrosion resistant, but a 1950s Volkswagen Beetle, probably not what you want to be leaving out in the cold. This one's been fully mechanically gone over, and we're hopefully going to be driving this on the channel soon. The owner said I could take it out, but I don't want to subject it to anything ugly out on those salt-covered roads. But he also has that beautiful Defender up top. So you get an eclectic collection of people's babies, but the mode vehicle in here, definitely Porsche. People love their Porsches, and this GT2 RS might be one of my favorite cars in here, not because it's a GT2 RS, but because it has clearly seen a lot of track miles. I think this thing has 8,000 track miles on it. And look at all the tire marks, all the slugs that have slammed into this car, even on the roof. It's so beautiful to see that people really use their cars. So please don't mistake a place like this as just an excuse to have things and never touch them. No, this guy's in here trading in and out of his cars all the time, but he uses this one for track stuff and just has the space here to store it. And while it may not be the most exotic or expensive car in here, this 76 Lincoln makes a big statement. In fact, it doesn't fit on any of these platforms. So Mary Todd Lincoln lives right here on the ground where she belongs. Who doesn't love some flip-up headlights? Oh man, I gotta drive this one pretty soon as well. Let's head back upstairs because I want to record a podcast today with my friend Thanasi, who is probably one of the most knowledgeable people of the auto industry. I love picking his brain, especially when it comes to the future of things, the progress of businesses, the failure of businesses, seeing who's losing money, who's making money, and what the projections are for what we're going to be driving in the near future. But this is the Clubhouse. actually use a coffee right now. Do a little Americano guy. Got my Ineos video playing right now on the big TV in front of the big comfy couch with the Concorde on the wall. But there's a nice little treat in the podcast studio for me, because when we walk in here, yeah, there's a window there and I can see into the storage bay, but I've got a nice little piece of glass here as well. So when we're sitting down here recording, I've got a view at some of my favorite cars, which is actually decent inspiration and sometimes helpful for whatever we're talking about in here. There could be more sound insulation. It does get a little bit echoey in here, and we've got some pieces in here. I might try to get the whole thing just littered in that egg crate foam, because I think that would sound better. But honestly, I'm pretty content with how the podcast sounds at the moment. But the last thing I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna get some time on the simulator, because we've got iRacing in here. And this is really helpful because I'm gonna run some tracks that I have never driven before this year, and getting some time on the sim to drive Lime Rock and Watkins Glen and iRacing is really helpful, especially when it's in a setup that's pretty darn realistic. You got this crazy Fanatec wheel, great pedal setup, which I'm gonna clean that up with a vacuum pretty soon. Everyone's grubby shoes. And an OMP wheel. Now, this has all kinds of crazy motion. It'll yaw and pitch and do all kinds of stuff. Sometimes I turn that off just because it's a little extra, but it is really fun, and it's a great party trick when you have your friends in here. And Eddie still leads with a 52.8 in the GT4 Club Sport at Lime Rock, and with a 131.1. David, of course, has the best crashes. Well, that's gonna wrap it for me today. I've done what I came to do. I didn't get any sim time today because I would like to beat the traffic. Sometimes getting out of here on any roads during rush hour in Massachusetts are pretty brutal. But I love it when someone's dropped off another car when I'm on my way out. This is one of my favorites. You've seen this in another video before. This is such a great color on an SC. It's beautiful. And this guy really does drive all of his cars. He's kind of dedicated in the sense that he will wake up on a Saturday morning at 4:30 in the morning just to go out and session the roads that he likes with no traffic on them. And I would do that. I'm just so not a morning person. It's tough for me to find that motivation. I've got my winter snow brush in the Lexus now because it does get pretty gross. Normally I'd go and do a little undercarriage wash, but it's kind of pointless right now because it's very, very wet. Heated seats, heated steering wheel, and that's why we have a winter daily driver. As I elbow the shit out of that steering wheel. Oof. So I'm gonna mosey my way back home on a dreary kind of day. I'm probably gonna go for a short run when I get home once I get my high-vis jacket on. I've been trying to keep up with the cardio in the winter because of two reasons. One, psychologically, it just does wonders to keep me sane. And two, I hate the feeling of trying to get my quote-unquote summer body back after a long, dormant, and non-active winter. So I'm just trying to keep up with it. I mean, sure, I'm going to the gym and lifting and stuff, and I put on 15 pounds since the beginning of 2024. So I am proud of what I've accomplished in terms of putting on a little bit of muscle mass. Not because I'm trying to show off to anybody, but because I always wanted to put on a little bit of muscle just for my own strength and well-being, and now I'm doing it, but I got to balance it out with a bit of cardio. So thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and watching a bit of my day-to-day, because this is kind of what I end up doing. If I'm not doing a photo shoot or traveling for a car, then I'm probably here doing a podcast or swapping cars, or just this is it. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you're interested in Garage 42, reach out to Josh and see if this is a good fit for what you'd like to do with your collection. Thanks so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.